So Modern Warfare 3 has been here for just under a week now. I've clocked a fair amount of playtime, and today I essentially just wanted to go over everything about Modern Warfare 3 that I think is actually really well done by the team at Sledgehammer Games. Now, we'll be doing a follow-up to this with pretty much everything bad in just a few days, so be sure to subscribe for more Modern Warfare 3 content if you are interested. I dare say that that is going to be one hell of a rant, because there is a lot of stuff in this game that I simply just do not enjoy. So keep your eyes peeled for that, but today we are focusing on the positives. So without wasting any time, let's jump right into it. Now, the first thing on my list here is actually to do with the movement. And it's kind of ironic because as I'm saying this, a lot of people all over the internet are actually complaining about the movement in Modern Warfare 3. Now, for those who don't know, there is essentially a bug at the moment, or it may be done on purpose. I'm not really too sure, but I don't think it will be. There is some sort of bug, let's just call it a bug for now anyway, with the slide cancel, where doing a slide cancel won't actually reset the tactical sprint. And a lot of people are very, very unhappy with this because it makes the game feel a little bit more clunky to those who are super, super sweaty when it comes to the movement. And I don't say that in a mean way, because I do the exact same thing. I'm a slide cancel fiend in this game, and it is definitely a bit of an issue that has been changed from the beta, because it was completely fine in the beta. There was the proper slide cancel that we're used to from the original Modern Warfare, or Modern Warfare 2019, I should say. And so it's funny that I've put movement as a good thing in here, because like I said, a lot of people are complaining about it. Even with the current bug there though, I genuinely think the movement is just so much better in this game than Modern Warfare 2. That was probably one of my biggest complaints with that game as a whole. The movement just felt so clunky. It felt like you were kind of stuck in the mud, and the movement in this game is a hell of a lot better. And for me, I'm probably one of those type of players that movement is probably one of my biggest strengths. I'm not super good at aiming. I'm not necessarily the best when it comes to the general skill set of Call of Duty, but movement and just trying to like outmaneuver my enemies is probably where I do the best when it comes to Call of Duty. So for me, I'm much happier with the movement in this game. It feels as though you actually have a bit of a skill ceiling to it, where the absolute bots of the game, they're not going to be able to move like the best players out there. And that is how it should be. If you're good at the game, you should have better control when it comes to movement and even like aiming and all that kind of thing. Having nerfed movement is almost just like giving everyone super, super strong aim assist, and it just makes the game automatic for everyone essentially. So the movement in this game is really solid. They do need to fix that slide cancel bug if it is a bug. Hopefully they haven't done that on purpose. But even if they did, I think the outcry that I've seen today on Twitter will surely have them changing it in no time at all. Now, the next thing on the list here is the gunplay, and I think they've actually improved again on the Modern Warfare 2 gunplay. I don't think the gunplay in that game was bad. It was definitely very bouncy. One of the biggest issues at launch with that game was like you couldn't barely see what you were shooting at half the time, and it's not the actual recoil of the weapon. It is more just the visual recoil. Your screen would just shake like crazy. There was a heap of smoke on your screen and stuff like that. And it did at times make it kind of hard to just hit your shots, at least early on in the game. I think we all got used to it eventually, but I do remember early on it was pretty hard to actually hit your shots. Now, I feel like they've kind of kept the good elements of the Modern Warfare 2 gunplay and just, you know, toned down the screen shaking and the smoke and all that kind of thing. And I do really, really enjoy the gunplay in this game. It's probably up there with one of the best games that I've played in terms of a shooter. I think the gunplay just feels really good. It feels really smooth and snappy, and I would not complain if the gunplay in every COD was like this, because yeah, I think they've pretty much nailed it on the head when it comes to Modern Warfare 3. Now, next up we have one that is probably a bit of a hot take actually. I've never really paid attention to what anyone else thinks about this, but the new kind of gear system that they've got that essentially replaces the perk system, I actually really like this new system. Now, at the end of the day, it is pretty much the exact same thing, so it's not that big of a change. But there is the new system where rather than picking the typical 3 perks, we're essentially picking gloves and boots, and then gear on top of that, and that is pretty much acting as those 3 perks. But it's kind of good because it's grouping all of the same types of perks into the same categories, rather than how it used to be, where they would just kind of jumble together for balancing. Now it is actually like the boots, for example, they actually do affect your movement in one way or another. So it's kind of like all of the movement-based perks are in one slot. All of the stuff with your gloves, for example, it helps with aiming or quicker reloads and stuff like that. That's all in one perk slot as well. So I actually really like that, surprisingly. I generally don't tend to enjoy when they try to, you know, reinvent the wheel at Call of Duty. The perk system forever has been so good. It's something that I've always loved in Call of Duty. So when I heard they were changing it, and when I sort of first saw it in the beta, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, to be honest, but once I actually got my hands on it and gave it a bit of a play, it actually feels fine to me personally. So that may be a bit of a hot take. Like I said, I haven't actually looked at anyone else's opinions as to whether they like it or not. I can't imagine anyone hates it, because at the end of the day, it's not that different from the perk system. It's almost just like putting gloves and boots skins on the perks. It's really not that different, but for me, I actually really like that. It almost also makes it feel a bit more realistic. Not that that's really necessary in COD, but it actually just makes more sense that you know, the type of gloves that you choose, they affect the way that you handle a gun and stuff like that. So I'm actually a big fan of that, and it's one of the few changes. Whenever they change stuff like this, I always generally hate it, but it's one of the few times that I actually really like this change overall. Now, the last one on the list for me is the maps, and this essentially goes without saying. The original Modern Warfare 2 maps are all amazing, or most of them are amazing. There's some that aren't that great, but for me, that is one of the all-time Call of Duties. Now, it had its own issues, but the maps were always so good in that game, and like I said, it goes without saying that when you put old classic maps back in Call of Duty, that is definitely going to be a good thing. Now, with that being said, I actually cannot believe that we have essentially all been scammed with reused content, and we're all fine with it. That's the same for me. I'm not saying that like everyone else is like that. I'm the same. I'm pretty much accepting of the fact I've been scammed. I paid $100 for content that I've already played, essentially. But weirdly enough, I'm actually fine with it. And the reason for that is because it shows how shocking their level design has been for the last 5 or 10 years, that I'm essentially happy to pay 100 Australian dollars, or for most people, it's like $70, for example, just to get content that I've already spent hundreds of hours playing before. Generally, I'm not the biggest fan of like a reused content unless it's like a, you know, mid-season. You know, they added Nuketown and stuff back in the day, that's fine. When it's 16 maps that are all maps we've played before, generally speaking, I'm not too fond of that kind of thing, but because of how absolute dog shit all of the Call of Duty maps have been for the last at least 5 years now, I am actually completely fine with it. So it is kind of hypocritical. I'm essentially saying there that I've been scammed and I was dumb for paying money for this game, but at the end of the day, that just goes to show how bad it has been over the last 5 or 10 years. But honestly, that is pretty much all I think I can say when it comes to the stuff that I think they've done well in this game. Now, in fairness to them, a lot of the stuff I mentioned is the more crucial elements of any first-person shooter: the movement, the gunplay, the maps, for example. Those are probably 3 of the top 5 most important things. So even though I've only mentioned a few things here, I do have to give them credit that those elements are actually fairly well done. So props to them on that, and obviously they had a pretty quick turnaround with this game too, so they've done well on that front. Now, like I said, I'm going to be doing a follow-up to this, going over all the bad, and I won't lie, there is a lot of bad in this game, so keep your eyes peeled for that. It should be the next video on the channel. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.